Welcome everyone to another episode of RawViews. My name is Steven, and today I'm going to be breaking down the quarter numbers and the ratings from Wednesday's Wrestling War. And also, I have a good friend of mine, Thom Cunningham from VegasInsider.com, who's going to break down the Elimination Chamber odds. And I tell you, man, that when we get into that, there's a lot of good stuff there. You will all appreciate it if you're metrics people just like I am, which if you follow me by now, you probably are. But I'm going to start today with the ratings from Wednesday. Some big news there. NXT jumps up, finishes just a handful of thousand. All right, somebody's going to take that out of context there. About 40,000 viewers, less than AEW. Jump much higher for them in the key. AEW, however, it just stays the steady course in that 750, 800 range. And I see a lot of people asking, is that good or bad for AEW? And I'm going to touch that first. It is good for AEW because they are outpacing their initial metrics. The initial expectations of AEW were much lower than the 750 number. So therefore, their current numbers are very good. However, when you look long term, and you start to wonder, if they just completely plateau at the 750 number, when that next negotiation comes up, they'll probably stay on television, but they probably won't be able to get that big TV pay raise, which everybody's looking for. So how do they do that? They need to grow their viewership up by a little bit more. If they can stabilize in the 901 million range and be a consistent top 3 show on cable, they'll be fine, and more than fine. They'll get more money. So right now, if you're asking yourself, is AEW doing well in the ratings? The answer is simply yes. For NXT, on the other hand, they do a lot of ups and downs. It feels like the intrigue for them is really spotty. It's really hit or miss, and that's a little concerning. What you hope here is over the last 7 days, or now 8-9 days, they've had a lot of good intrigue. There hasn't been a lot of negative on the show for people to point to, and as we see when we jump into these quarter ratings here in a few minutes, they had a lot of intrigue. They had their most intrigue without a WWE main roster star since I think Keith Lee winning the title. So jumping in here, quarter numbers, how do these work? Every quarter hour gets associated a number. How many viewers watched, how many people in the key demo. I'm not going to talk tons about the key demo. Of course, AEW beat them in the key demo every single quarter. That's why they doubled them nearly in the key demo as a whole. But the first thing I want to point out here is the very first thing is that NXT opened their show with 997,000 viewers. That's right, almost 1 million viewers to open the NXT show. That was fantastic. That was 225,000 more than AEW. 225,000 more. AEW opened at 772, but then what happened? What happened was all those people that tuned in, all 225,000 of them left. NXT dropped to 772. AEW slightly dropped to 763. So that tells me there was huge intrigue at the very beginning, and then after they saw it, they left. And they never came back for the night. As a matter of fact, the NXT numbers would decline over the first 4 quarters. So NXT starts at 997, drops to 772, then drops to 703, then drops to 648. AEW, on the other hand, those first 4 quarters, that first hour of the show, they stayed pretty consistent, and they saw a slight increase, but I mean, we're talking within 20,000 viewers for the first hour for them, give or take, throughout the quarters. AEW started at 772,000, then dipped to 763, then jumped to 789, then dipped to 775. Again, that's a net positive where you started the first hour, where you ended the first hour by 3,000 viewers, but it was a very consistent number. That's a very tight range right there. If you can keep that, if you're AEW or NXT, that tight range, you're doing very well. Let's look at the second quarter, or the second hour, however. AEW drops below 700,000. NXT picks up to 702,000. That was for the Dusty Cup segment, and that was for the Bucks and Santana and Ortiz, which I'm pretty surprised about. I thought that tag title match would do pretty well. It dropped, though. And those are the drops where we talked about in that first hour, that tight-knit 20,000 give or take everywhere. That's good. That big drop of 76,000, that's bad, especially for a title match with two of your bigger stars in the Bucks and then Santana and Ortiz, who are in a major angle with AEW right now with the Inner Circle. NXT, however, they pull the reins back up because they do have Shayna, they do have Nia on there. It is the Dusty Cup winners, MSK. The next quarter, though, you can see NXT did a drop, and a pretty big drop at that, by about 71,000. AEW picked up a few, picked up about 9,000, up to 708. I'm going to continue with AEW here. They go up again, 728, but then they lose viewers again they gained 13,000 viewers this time in the final hour, so they conclude at 741,000 viewers. If you look where they started at 772, ended at 741. That's a good night. That is a good night. You're not losing a ton of viewers, but if you pointed to a quarter, that fifth quarter, it seemed like people switched back over to NXT, but neither show picked up those couple of 100,000 that tuned in that typically don't. I mean, maybe they do here and there, but they typically don't tune in. Neither show picked those fans up. They didn't come back for the end of NXT either. NXT finished the night at 617, so they started the second hour at 702, and then once again they saw a steady decline throughout. 762, 631, 614, and then 617, so a slight upward tick to close the show. Again, AEW less volatile than NXT was. Great interest number for NXT. It is something I've pointed out with AEW in the past. If you can get viewers to tune in, that's really good, but you got to keep them, and neither show have really been able to do that. So yeah, when you look at this, you're very excited about it, but you're still closing your show in the 600,000s. I mean, you lost over 300,000 viewers, and when you're talking about a show like AEW or NXT, if they lose 300,000 viewers in a night, that is a significant part. That's a third of their audience from Wednesday night that they lost. So take with that what you will. I think both shows are going to be fine on television. I think NXT has found something with them. I'm interested to see how they progress with it. I like the fact that they are putting on a very competitive show against AEW Revolution Go Home show. Very good night for AEW, though. When you look at it, like I said, very tight-knit. Just that one quarter with the Bucks. And, man, the ladies of NXT tend to do this to some of the bigger names in AEW. They take those viewers away, and they did it in the fifth quarter of the Bucks tag title match. But up next, special guest, Thom Cunningham, Vegas insider, to break down the Elimination Chamber odds, give you a couple of strategies, and we bring up some really great points on things to look at, including who is the current favorite to be the next WWE champion after Drew McIntyre. Here we are. Let me jump to that now. Joe, he is a betting expert. I've worked with him before. He used to work with me at Wrestling News World. We helped launch Shooting the Sports-ish together. Thom Cunningham. Thom, tell him a little bit about yourself and exactly who you are.
Hey, what's up, Steven? Thanks for having me on, first of all.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so I'm the editorial production manager over at VegasInsider.com, where we cover betting odds and betting previews for various different leagues, NFL, college football, basketball, you name it. And so, I pretty much cover the industry in terms of sports betting. Not necessarily on the casino side as much, or the lottery or American legislation. Deal more with specific games and things like that and different events. And one of them is WWE. Now, it's not legal in the United States. It's only legal betting in the United Kingdom. But it's still fun to talk about, I think. And, I'm sure we have people across the pond that listen to this that can legally make money. And so figured, why not come on? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no. So first off, you and I have talked about doing a cross-brand thing now forever. Both of us are heavy metrics guys. We love numbers. So having you on and just having conversations with you behind the scenes, always loved you bringing this element in. Actually, when I brought you on to Wrestling News World, I loved every one of your articles because it's so metric heavy. So right now, let's start first before we jump into WWE. You now work VegasInsider.com. Now, do you guys do betting, or do you just track trends, odds, and everything that goes into making a decision on betting?
Yeah, well, we preview events anywhere from NASCAR to the PGA. Since I've been brought aboard, tennis as well, all the way to football. So anything.
Oh, wow.
One end of the spectrum to the other. We do cover the odds. We cover the trends. We track all those numbers, betting trends, what movements are doing, how people are betting, how the public is betting. Any of that stuff we cover pretty heavily. It's quite cumbersome, as you know.
Yeah.
There's so many corners of this universe in sports betting, and we're just getting started as more states are starting to legalize it across the country. But as again, WWE is not legal, so we don't cover it on VI, but still fun to talk about, and so yeah.
Sure, and as gambling becomes more legal in the United States, you would have to assume over time it may actually become legal in the United States. But let's jump in, because a lot of people might ask, Steven, why did you bring on a betting guy? It's a predetermined sport. What does this have to do with anything? So right. I know your answer to this, but I want you to tell people your answer to what intrigue, for people like us, for metrics heavy people, why there's so much intrigue in tracking these betting odds before these major events.
Well, first of all, I think that even if you know the outcome, or you think you know the outcome, you should still be able to bet on it. I know that New Jersey and Indiana, they actually green-lit the Oscars betting, which is an award show, right?
Yeah.
You know the winners ahead of time. And so if that can get green-lit because of the traffic it generates, I do see down the road WWE possibly getting green-lit in one state at minimum, because as you know, the industry is state regulated, it's not national regulated. And so I think it has a future. I think the deal Fox made to buy SmackDown makes it a whole lot more interesting due to the fact that they're a sportsbook, Fox Bet. If you look at Sky Sports, which is where we're going to be getting the odds we use for this discussion today, across the pond, they are a network and a sportsbook, and Fox is very similar in that regard. So the fact that Fox now owns the coverage rights of SmackDown on Friday nights, you would think that they would want to vouch for people being able to bet on a match on SmackDown. That way that their sportsbook has another option for people. So it's very interesting to see, and it's almost like a gold mine that has yet to be tapped into, but it's rushing rapidly right now. And I would be shocked if WWE and Fox didn't try to come together to try to make this happen in some way down the road.
Well, you mentioned it's kind of a gold mine. Fox would want to do this. And just to put this in terms people might understand, it's like streaming services purchasing content. These betting books need more content. They need more things for people to bet on, because the more things people can bet on, the more money they stand to make.
Exactly.
So let's transition fully into WWE here. Why, for you and I, why do we love looking at these metrics? This is a form of metric. Why do we track? Because I know you and I have had tons of conversations of, I think there for like 3 months, I asked you, what are Keith Lee's Royal Rumble winning odds?
Yeah.
in a private chat.
I get a message from you every now and then. Hey, what's Vegas looking like on this?
Absolutely, because it's, it's not a 100% lock on things, but just like with anything else, follow the money enough, right? If you're a sports fan, overnight you saw Phillip Rivers odds to, or not Phillip Rivers, who just went to the Colts.
You're talking about Carson Wentz.
You saw Carson Wentz's odds. He was heavily favored to go to the Bears overnight, minus 1,200 to go to the Colts. Later that day, he signed with the Colts. Exactly. So you follow the money enough, you can tend to get answers that you want. So why do you track these? Why do you find wrestling odds so interesting?
Well, I mean, I'm just a fan of wrestling. I'm actually huge into storytelling and script writing as well. So WWE kind of is a cross between what I do, which is cover sports, and what I love, which is theater. So it's like, why not? If there's odds, I'm definitely going to follow them. I mean, for goodness gracious sakes, Ireland has betting odds on the Great British Bake Off. I love that show. So I follow trends for that show. I don't tell anybody about it until now, but it just, everyone to each their own. I know Australia, they have their own AFL and rugby leagues that they follow, and so I track those leagues. It just, it really just depends what you're a fan of. I love this industry. I love the WWE. I love, AEW. I love wrestling, pro wrestling.
Sure.
And so it's like, why not? Why not add to the list?
I know you just made it down to Florida.
Yeah.
DM me if you ever have the time to go up to Jacksonville. DM me and I could probably set something up for you.
Okay, great.
So now let's transition. We have odds.
Yes.
So do you expect, the first thing people are going to ask, because we are recording this on a Friday, it's going to drop a couple hours after we record. These odds aren't locked in. These odds could change. Are you giving official betting advice here? Or, let's kind of set the table for everybody who's listening to this.
Yeah, I mean, you just let me know what you want to know. The odds are always subject to change until the first bell rings.
Sure.
As long as the sportsbook keeps the bet open, the odds are subject to change at any moment. Which is why you see some people buy odds early, like a day ahead of a game, or they buy them an hour before tip-off because they want to wait on an injury report or something.
Yeah.
So they go up and down. But it's whatever you want to, whatever you want to know, just ask.
So traditionally speaking, when we go up to this, at least from what I've seen, if there are any major swings, typically you have a fluctuating pattern of one or two people throughout the course of the week leading up, and then it's the morning of or the night before, typically the morning of into midday, where you might see a big jump in a change of a favorite.
Yeah.
Can you explain to people why that might be happening?
Well, I think a good example is Edge for the Royal Rumble. Now, Daniel Bryan was the favorite
forever
for about 2 or 3 weeks entering the Royal Rumble. He had about plus 150 odds. That's roughly a 40% chance to win. Pretty high odds for a Royal Rumble winner. Edge was looming around, let's say plus 300, plus 400. That's roughly anywhere between 20% chance to win. The day of the Rumble, he jumped to plus 175, so he was right behind Daniel Bryan.
So his odds nearly doubled then, because you just told me plus 350, plus 400. That gives you roughly a 20% chance, where Bryan's numbers was about plus, about a 40% chance. So you're telling me Bryan's odds, or Edge's odds jumped from about 20 to 40% overnight.
Yeah, that's what happened. And quite frankly, I was digging Edge as a pick. Well before this. I thought Bryan was a little bit too random, almost as if the bookmakers were trying to throw like dangling fruit for people to pick at.
Yeah.
Because that's a valuable candidate, but Daniel Bryan didn't even make it to the final 5 because we have a final 5, not a final 4 this year. And so, as I thought Edge with the storyline, with the WrestleMania implication, he's arguably going to make Vince a ton of money as a name. So he'd probably be included in a title match at WrestleMania. I just felt like Edge was a great pick, and what a roller coaster. Matt, if you picked Edge to win that Royal Rumble and watched that Royal Rumble, you probably had the most fun ever watching any wrestling match of all time.
I bet, because adding that couple extra dollars on it, because we so a little inside baseball for all of you listening. So Tom and I and a bunch of the other guys that we know, we were in some chats during the NBA playoffs and stuff. And, we're all known to throw a couple dollars around here and there, and it adds a layer of intrigue that, on top of an already intriguing event.
Yeah. Anytime you can win money on something, it absolutely takes your emotions to the next level. But with that said, this is gamble responsibly. Always keep it in check and do it legally too. And if you're living in a state where it's not legal, just be patient. It'll come. Yeah. It's coming. Arizona, Georgia's talking about expanding. You have all these states. It'll only be a matter of time. So just hang in there.
Absolutely. So let's jump into the event this Sunday. I've already given my predictions on this event, so I'm going to compare my predictions to what Vegas is saying, or what Sky Bet, I guess, is saying.
Right.
So let's start with do you have odds on the triple threat match?
Yeah, we got odds on the triple threat match. Right. This is all Sky Bet. All these odds we'll be using, which is regulated bookie in the UK. Bobby Lashley is going to be the favorite entering. He's got roughly a 63.6% chance to win, which is somewhat high for a triple threat match, I would argue. You have Matt Riddle. He's kind of in the middle with a 26.7% chance to win. And then Keith Lee. His odds are 4-1, 20% chance to win. Pretty interesting, if you ask me.
Yeah, I was going to ask you because in my predictions, I have Lashley winning. Okay. So me and the bookies agree here. Not only that, but I have Lee not actually in this match. Do you think that's why his odds could be lower because of the question mark of him actually competing Sunday?
Absolutely, but it's WWE, so I would be surprised if Mustafa Ali ended up being in the match. You just never know.
I do think we see Mustafa Ali on the card. Let's go on. What other matches do you have the odds for?
We got Elimination Chamber and Roman Reigns as well.
All right, so let's start with we'll do the SmackDown Chamber and Roman all together.
Okay.
Let's do the Raw Chamber now. I have McIntyre retaining. Do the books agree with me?
Yeah, he's got a 73.3% chance to win. That's 4-11 odds of winning. That's very high for a 6-man match. So it's a near lock, I would say.
Okay. Now, is there any other thing that you can bet on in that match? Any, how many people get eliminated or who eliminates the most people? Anything like that? Any prop bets for this match?
Yeah, you can. Let's see. You have first. Who's going to be eliminated first from the match? Who's going to have the most eliminations in the match? And then who's going to last the longest?
Okay, so I actually said Kofi in my predictions would be first to get eliminated. How does that compare with the books?
He's second highest odds at 30.8% chance. I actually agree with the bookies here. I think Jeff Hardy is probably first one out at 63.6%. But okay. Sheamus at 14-1, you have to consider, just because 14-1. What that means is if you put $1 on Sheamus to be the first eliminated, and you would win back 14. So it's just very valuable. So yeah. I would look at that as well.
So let me ask you: is there because Drew is the favorite to win? Is there a name where you see a lot of value in a winner
of the match?
Yeah.
Boy, I just don't see anyone but Drew walking out. At
Sure.
73.3. I would argue that's value. Technically, when you're looking at odds that are 4-11, you would basically be paying close to $300 to win back 100 if Drew wins. Quite frankly, I would take those odds compared to Jeff Hardy's 66-1. I just don't see anyone else in this match taking the belt.
Yeah, the only thing you could possibly do is have Sheamus win, but I think that was kind of thrown out with him winning on Raw.
Yeah.
So let me ask you: is there any props for the Fiend appearing, or Alexa appearing, or anything like that?
No, there's none of that. But Orton's got odds in the match, so you could maybe look at. Let's see, his odds to last the longest are third highest at 14.3. So perhaps he goes a long way, runs the distance, but comes up short when that moment, if it happens. And then he's tied for the third highest odds to see the most eliminations in the match. So looking at those two prop bets,
yeah,
you look at those two, and it almost indicates that he should be in this match for a while. If he has somewhat good odds to last the longest and see the most eliminations, that indicates one common denominator, and that's he's probably going to be in the ring first, second, or maybe even third, and just go for a while. So I think that the Fiend showing up would back this. That Orton runs the distance, is almost there, and then boom.
Yeah, that is a great point, and it's something I didn't even think about. I heard you say those odds, and I started thinking to myself, okay, well, is this possible? And you said, well, the common denominator is the fact that these two things are likely if he's in the match for a long time. Very, very, very good point there. Let's go ahead and move on to the head of the table. Let me ask you first, because I haven't got to talk a lot of wrestling with you lately. How do you feel about Roman Reigns right now? I think he's clearly the biggest number one act in all of wrestling.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, he's on the platform he's given right now is basically, top notch when you're comparing it to other sporting leagues. Regardless of whatever your favorite company is, the WWE is up with the NFL of football or the NBA. It is up there as a proven highest level of professional in its industry. And so when you're given that platform, when you're the star of a show on Fox on Friday nights, exactly. You're known in both the wrestling and the sports world. Remember, this guy was a defensive end at Georgia Tech. He's been in movies. It's hard to argue. And so I would argue that with given the platform, the spotlight, the story at hand, and just Roman himself, just being, the guy. Everyone knows about his story, what he overcame. He's been in, the company now for, I don't even know, over a decade, if I'm not mistaken. So, I think that it's safe to say he's not only paid his dues, but he is now a living legend that we're watching.
I agree. I think he has already put himself into that top 20 all-time listing. Because he's the closest thing you have to a main attraction right now. Also, his accolades. He's main evented 4 WrestleManias. Look up the people that's done that. It's Roman, and Hulk Hogan. But let's go ahead. Let's get into the match a little bit because I think there's a lot here. I spent a lot of time on my show on Wednesday breaking down this match because I think there's so much intrigue into this. And what I would do and what I think is going to happen are two different things. I think the Kevin Owens story is red hot right now, so you run with that. You have him win. You have him lose to Roman. Dirty again. But I actually think my prediction was Cesaro wins because it is a low-risk opportunity for WWE to give him some shine. What do the books say? Yeah,
they like Cesaro at 54.5, so it's much lower than Drew's Chamber odds to win. I was thinking about that too. Your theory of it's a low risk, high reward ordeal with Cesaro. So that would be, I think, like Vince would give Cesaro, this is your opportunity. Here you go. And obviously Roman would walk away with the belt. Which we can get to that match in terms of betting in a second because there's a strategy with that one. But I look at Daniel Bryan's odds at 11-2, and I think why not? If he was favored to win the Royal Rumble, maybe there's somebody that knows something. There's a scent on Daniel Bryan for WrestleMania. Kevin Owens has the second highest odds though. So your theory, I think you could go with Cesaro, KO, or Daniel Bryan, and come out okay with any of those picks.
So the favorite right now is Cesaro, but you said there's a bit of a strategy you can use here. So this is for this is a betting strategy. This is something that an expert sees that is a possibility here. So go ahead, break this down a little bit. I'm interested.
So Roman Reigns has 1-20 odds to win his match. That is 95.2%. Yeah, that's insane. Versus whoever the number one contender is 8-1. Which means if you put $100 on the number one contender, you'd win back 800. Not great, but I think whenever the champion is fighting in a non-stipulated match, you have to be weary because there's always the DQ count out. where the champion loses but keeps the belt. So even if that, if that happens here, the number one contender would actually win bettor's money. So I think whoever wins this chamber match, Cesaro, DB, or KO, if you have your own opinion about each character's, storyline, where it's heading, if they were to match up with Roman, and you have an idea, like if Cesaro wins and you think, well, they put him against Roman, but I really don't think, he might win by DQ. If Cesaro ends up winning, feel free to go after that number one contender. It's very, very valuable odds for a match where the champion, could lose and keep the belt. So I think, if there's a winner in the chamber match that you like, for some reason or another, to perhaps win by DQ or count out against Roman Reigns, take it. And so that would be my strategy.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, because as you bring up, we are on that road to WrestleMania. We're roughly, 48 days away or something, 49 days away. So we're starting to set things up specifically for Mania. What better way than to have somebody go through that chamber, look like they're about to beat Roman, and then the Usos show up, disqualification, and now we've set the table for WrestleMania. So very good point there. Is there anything else in the show with the odds that you'd like to point out before we go here?
Let's see. Sami Zayn he's the favorite to be first eliminated in the number one contender match, 60%. I think that's an okay bet. Jey Uso, 6-1, 14.3%. I think that's an okay pick too. I would avoid Baron Corbin. WWE tends to book him strong, typically. So I would avoid him being the first eliminated. And then most eliminations, Cesaro's favorite, 50%. So perhaps we see somewhat of an edge rub here where, okay, Cesaro goes in first and runs the gauntlet and wins. And kind of going to your theory, it's like, okay, then he takes on Roman Reigns. Oh my goodness, he's about to win. In come the Usos.
Exactly.
But the fact that we just said it out loud is now going to be on social media won't happen because WWE loves trolling.
Yeah, absolutely. I just I just feel like, Cesaro is one of those guys. It reminds me of Kofi. It reminds me of so many other guys that the fans clamor for, but WWE has to wonder, are they clamoring for him out of irony, or are they actually wanting him? And this is an opportunity where you can say, okay, here you go, Cesaro, go make the most of it, and then we'll make a determination after.
Yeah. You just don't know, because quite frankly, I'm not sold. I'm not sold on Cesaro winning. I mean, the odds say he will.
Yeah, I could just as easily, because KO has been screwed over month after month after month now, see him win this and then once again get screwed over in the main event.
And I didn't consider KO until you said that. It's like, oh, Steven makes a good point. So it's like, now you just added another a name to the list so it's. It's such an unpredictable thing as it is, as it comes. Now you're adding the chamber, a number one contender match in the same night. It just becomes very, very difficult. But I think if they give Cesaro, the win here and then the match against Roman, that to me is like, okay, WWE. That's a good professional move there. You get to a workhorse here, a guy who has proven himself, the fans love. I mean, every time I do my match of the year ranking, Cesaro is at least on the list, 4 or 5 times. It's just, it would be almost like a nod to the fans, to Cesaro, and the industry as a whole if WWE did go Cesaro. But I like the story of KO, and then you have to consider Daniel Bryan because he's such a strong, he's just such a strong competitor.
Well, to your point, he was so heavily favored in the Royal Rumble. Yeah. That you have to wonder, is there, where there's smoke, there's fire, right?
WrestleMania script that someone knows. If you see Daniel Bryan's the favorite for no reason to win the Royal Rumble, there was nothing certainly on TV that indicated Daniel Bryan should be a strong favorite, but he was. Sure. Now he's in a chamber match for the. It's just you just have to be alert of these things.
So my last question here before I let you go, are there odds on Edge and who he's going to choose?
No, there is not. However, there were odds on who will be WWE champion after Drew McIntyre. And that could occur at Elimination Chamber. It could occur 5 years from now if he holds the belt for 5 years. It's just whoever. Sure. It's just whoever. And do you want to take a guess who the favorite was?
Well, I mean, you brought this up when we were talking about Edge, so I'm going to say Edge.
The Miz.
Wow, that would mean a cash-in.
He had a 33.3% chance to be, as the favorite, at 33.3. That was the highest odds to be the champion after Drew. So just, I don't know if WWE is purposely, leaning, they're getting the audience's sense off of Miz a little bit. I mean, the guy's a proven commodity. So
Sure.
You have to always, here's a good analogy for any baseball fans out there. Alex Rodriguez was awful in the postseason, career-wise.
Yeah.
But anytime he's in the lineup in the postseason, the pitcher is not just going to shrug off Alex Rodriguez like, oh, okay, he's bad in the postseason. He's going to attack him because he knows how good of a hitter he is. This is kind of a similar thing with the Miz, I think, here. It's like right now the guy is, kind of taking a back role because he's so busy, obviously.
Yeah.
But he's a proven commodity. He is a moneymaker, and he has the briefcase. So, he is in the lineup, and you have to respect that. And the odds say he's going to be champion next. Those could go up or down depending on what happens moving forward. But just keep in mind, Miz is a player, and he's in the lineup. So keep that in mind.
I don't think there's any better place than we can end than you comparing The Miz to Alex Rodriguez. So, Tom, tell them where, once again, they can find you, or they can find you on social media. Again, I can say 100% Tom is a great guy, a great follow. He knows his stuff. I would like you back in the future, but go ahead, tell them where to find you.
Yeah, sure. Well, that Alex Rodriguez comparison could be good or bad, so it's just but yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at _TJKC_. I do tweet a lot though, so just be wary. It's a lot of sporting information and things like that. And then of course all my work is done on VegasInsider.com. Definitely go check them out. Very cumbersome website, up-to-date odds, betting trends, how the public is betting for various different sporting events. So definitely check that out if you're interested.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much. And again, do you think I can get you back on before Revolution?
No. Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Okay. All right, man. I'll talk to you later. Thanks.
All right, bud.
What a great conversation. I can't believe he just compared The Miz to Alex Rodriguez. Actually, fun fact, The Miz is my current favorite wrestler. Alex Rodriguez was my favorite baseball player after Griffey Jr. had to retire. So really cool personal blend for me there. But that's it. That's all I got today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I keep pushing back this Dungeon of Doom Chronicle, not on purpose, but when I get the opportunity to bring in someone like Tom, and I have these quarter numbers here that were so dynamic looking, I feel like I should talk about those a little bit. I hope everybody enjoys the Elimination Chamber. Check out my predictions if you haven't already. Go find my work over at WrestlingNewsWorld.com. All the guys and gals are putting together a predictions article. You can see all their work there. You can see all my work there. And until next time, be awesome.